Have you ever felt that inexplicable serenity, that inner peace that seems to arrive suddenly? It's as if the universe is whispering to you that you are exactly where you need to be. According to Carl Jung, that moment is not coincidence. It's a sign that true love, the one you really deserve, is approaching your life. Ask yourself, when was the last time you felt completely at peace with yourself? I'm not talking about those fleeting moments of happiness that come and go, but that deep feeling of being aligned with your true essence. Jung discovered that this serenity is the first indicator that you are vibrating at the right frequency to attract the authentic love you deserve. Today's world is designed to keep us distracted, constantly seeking external validation and pursuing relationships that never seem to completely satisfy us. We've become so accustomed to emotional chaos that when true calm appears, we almost don't know how to recognize it. Jung called this the paradox of modern love. We seek outside what can only be found first within ourselves. And here comes the revelation that changed the lives of thousands of my followers. When you begin to choose yourself, when you honor your own being above others' expectations, that's when the universe begins to conspire to bring you exactly the kind of love you've always deserved. Jung was revolutionary in discovering that our connection with the collective unconscious determines the relationships we attract. Every time you ignore your intuition, every time you silence that inner voice that tells you this doesn't feel right, you're postponing your encounter with authentic love. You're sending a message to the universe that you're not ready to receive what you deserve. Think about your past relationships. How many times have you found yourself repeating the same patterns? How many times have you attracted people who reflect precisely those parts of yourself that you have not wanted to face? This is no coincidence. Jung called it shadow projection, that tendency to attract relationships that show us exactly what we need to heal. True change begins when you have the courage to look in the mirror and recognize that perhaps, just perhaps, you've been looking for love in all the wrong places because you first needed to learn to love yourself. This isn't just a pretty phrase to hang on the wall. It's a profound psychological truth that Jung spent decades researching. The serenity that precedes true love has unique characteristics. It's not that false calm that comes from avoiding conflicts or settling. It's a peace that emerges when you finally stop fighting against yourself, when you integrate your shadows and accept every part of your being. Jung described it as the inner marriage, that reconciliation between your different aspects that must occur before you can truly unite with another person. Have you noticed that when you're in complete harmony with yourself, people around you seem to respond differently? There's something magnetic about someone who has made peace with their own being. Jung explained that this is the true alchemy of love. First, we transmute our inner chaos into order, and only then can we attract relationships that reflect that same harmony. Let me share something deeply personal with you. There was a time in my life when I desperately sought meaningful connections, but I kept attracting relationships that left me feeling empty. It was only when I began to study Jung's teachings that I understood what was happening. I wasn't choosing myself. I was allowing my need for approval to dictate my decisions, and the universe was simply returning that same pattern to me over and over again. The transformation began the day I decided to listen to my intuition, that inner voice that Jung considered our most direct connection to the wisdom of the collective unconscious. I started to establish healthy boundaries, to say no when something didn't resonate with me, and to choose myself even when that meant being temporarily alone. And then what Jung predicted happened. I began to experience that inexplicable serenity, that feeling that even amid uncertainty, something inside me knew I was on the right path. It wasn't an instant transformation, it was a process, what Jung would call the individuation process. But with each step I took toward my authenticity, that serenity became more frequent and deeper. Jung discovered that there are unmistakable signs that true love is near, and they all begin with this inner serenity. You start to notice synchronicities, those meaningful coincidences that seem to guide you. recurring dreams that show you symbols of union or completeness, an unexplainable confidence that everything is unfolding exactly as it should. Has it ever happened to you that suddenly you feel absolute clarity about what you want and don't want in a relationship? That the patterns that used to attract you now seem obvious and unattractive? This is what Jung called the elevation of the consciousness threshold. That ability to see with total lucidity that emerges when you've done the inner work. Something fascinating happens when you reach this state. You stop chasing love. You no longer feel that desperate urgency that used to drive you to accept less than you deserve. Jung explained that it's precisely at this point where the door opens for authentic love to enter, when you no longer need it to complete you, but you're ready to share from your fullness. Most people spend their entire lives searching externally for what Jung knew could only be found internally. We seek relationships that make us feel secure, valued, understood, without realizing that we first need to offer that security, that appreciation, and that understanding to ourselves. The serenity that precedes true love isn't passive. It's an active state of alignment with your essence. It's that moment when your actions, thoughts, and feelings are in perfect harmony. Jung called it the congruence of being, when what you say, do, and feel are perfectly aligned. Let's put it in practical terms. How do you know if you're experiencing that serenity that indicates true love is near? Jung identified several unmistakable signs. First, you'll notice that others' opinions no longer affect you as before. That need for external validation diminishes until it practically disappears. You begin to trust deeply in your own judgment and intuition. Second, your current relationships begin to transform. People who drain your energy naturally drift away, while those who resonate with your new vibration draw closer. Jung called this the reorganization of the energy field, that natural reordering that occurs when you change your inner frequency. Third, you begin to enjoy your own company in a way you've never experienced before. Solitude no longer frightens you, because you've discovered that rich inner life that Jung considered the true treasure of the human psyche. And fourth, perhaps most surprisingly, you begin to feel gratitude for your past relationships, even those that were painful. You understand that each one was a teacher who brought you exactly the lesson you needed to reach this point. Jung discovered that this state of serenity acts as a powerful magnet that attracts relationships of a completely different quality. You no longer attract people from your lack or fear, but from your fullness and self-love. And the difference is absolutely transformative. But be careful. This doesn't mean you should isolate yourself from the world until reaching some ideal state of inner perfection. Jung was very clear that relationships are precisely the mirror we need for our growth. What changes is the intention with which we approach them. We no longer seek someone to complete us, but celebrate the opportunity to share and grow together. Let me share a practical exercise that Jung recommended to cultivate this inner serenity. Each night, before sleeping, take a few minutes to reflect on the decisions you made during the day. Ask yourself, how many of these decisions did I make to please others? And how many did I make by truly listening to my inner voice? It's not about judging yourself, but about increasing your awareness of these patterns. Over time, you'll notice that you naturally begin to choose yourself more. Not from selfishness, but from the recognition that honoring your truth is the most valuable gift you can offer yourself, and ultimately, offer to the world and your relationships. Jung discovered something fascinating about the moment you begin to experience this serenity. Bridge people begin to appear in your life. These are connections that may not be your definitive partner, but are there to help you close the gap between your old self and this new, more authentic version of yourself. Recognizing them is important because they fulfill a specific purpose on your path. Something very few understand is that true love doesn't always arrive in the package we expect. Jung spoke about how our conditioned expectations can make us overlook deeply meaningful connections simply because they don't fit our preconceived idea of how love should be. Inner serenity allows us to recognize authentic love even when it arrives in unexpected forms. It's important to understand that this process isn't linear. There will be days when serenity seems distant, when old patterns try to return. Jung called it the resistance of the ego, that part of us that clings to the familiar, even when the familiar causes us pain. In those moments, remember that each step back is just preparation for taking 2 steps forward. Modern culture has sold us an image of love as something external, something we find outside ourselves. Jung revolutionized this idea by demonstrating that true love is actually an internal state that is then reflected in our external relationships. And serenity is the clearest sign that you have begun to cultivate that inner state. What happens when you begin to feel this serenity, but that special relationship you yearn for hasn't arrived yet? Jung would say that is precisely the moment to deepen into your own being, to celebrate that inner peace as an achievement in itself. Because when you stop seeing serenity as a means to an end and recognize it as the treasure it is, that's when you're truly ready to share your life with someone else. One of Jung's greatest revelations was that true love doesn't eliminate conflicts or challenges. It transforms them into opportunities for growth. The difference is that when you approach those challenges from a place of inner serenity, they no longer define or destabilize you. You become a conscious observer of your own reactions, able to respond from wisdom instead of reacting from wounds. Jung spoke of the inner sacred marriage, that moment when the seemingly opposite parts of our psyche reconcile. The anima and animus, the feminine and masculine side, the light and shadow. When you experience that inexplicable serenity, it's a sign that this inner marriage is occurring, preparing you for an equally harmonious external union. Have you noticed that when you're in that state of serenity, you naturally attract people who are at a similar level of self-knowledge? Jung explained it as the resonance of similar frequencies, that phenomenon by which we begin to magnetize relationships that reflect our own level of inner evolution. Something extraordinary happens when you finally choose yourself. The entire world seems to reorganize to support that decision. Relationships that seemed stagnant suddenly flow with new life. Opportunities you didn't see before begin to manifest. This isn't magic or superstition. It's what Jung called synchronicity, that mysterious coordination between our inner and outer worlds. The serenity that precedes true love has a unique quality that distinguishes it from other emotional states. It doesn't depend on external circumstances. It can be present even amid challenging situations. Jung described it as the eye of the hurricane, that perfectly calm center that remains unchangeable even when everything around it is in motion. Something fascinating happens when you reach this state. Your intuition dramatically sharpens. Suddenly, you can clearly feel which relationships nourish you and which drain you. You instinctively know when someone is being authentic with you and when they're not. Jung believed this refined intuition is our natural compass to navigate toward the love we truly deserve. Most people live their entire lives without ever experiencing the depth of love Jung described, not because it's not available to them, but because they've never allowed themselves to be completely themselves. The price of admission for true love is total authenticity, and few are willing to pay it. Here's a truth that might be uncomfortable. Often, just before experiencing that serenity that indicates true love is near, we go through a period of apparent chaos. Jung called it the dark night of the soul, that moment when everything we thought we knew about ourselves and about love seems to crumble. If you're going through that moment now, don't despair. It's just the preparation for something much deeper and truer. Jung discovered that there's a natural rhythm in our process of personal evolution, and we can't force it. Sometimes, the most loving thing you can do for yourself is simply respect that rhythm, trust the process, and allow that serenity to emerge naturally, like a flower that opens when it's ready, not when we want it to bloom. As you approach that inner serenity, you begin to relate differently not only with others, but also with yourself. That critical inner voice that once tormented you gradually transforms into a voice of wisdom and compassion. Jung saw it as the integration of the inner critic, when we stop fighting against that voice and learn to listen to the wisdom behind its criticism. One of the clearest signs that true love is near is when you begin to see beauty in places where you didn't see it before. Your perception fundamentally changes. Jung described it as seeing with the eyes of the soul, that ability to perceive the deeper dimension of reality, where everything is connected by invisible threads of meaning. Have you ever experienced moments of synchronicity, those meaningful coincidences that seem too perfect to be chance? Jung considered these synchronicities as signs that you're on the right path, that your inner and outer worlds are aligning. And when it comes to love, these synchronicities often intensify just before meeting someone special. Make no mistake, this process of choosing yourself isn't about becoming selfish or insensitive to others' needs. Jung was very clear that true self-love always leads us to greater compassion and connection with others, not away from them. The difference is that now that connection arises from abundance, not from lack. Modern society has conditioned us to always seek more stimuli, more connections, more experiences. Jung warned about this danger, noting that this incessant search takes us away from inner serenity. Learning to be present, to find satisfaction in the current moment, is perhaps the most direct path to that peace that indicates true love is near. When you finally allow yourself to experience that serenity, something magical happens. You stop needing relationships to provide constant validation. You no longer seek in others what you've found in yourself. And paradoxically, it's precisely at that moment when you become capable of receiving a deeper and more authentic love than ever before. Jung spoke about the importance of personal rituals to cultivate this connection with yourself. It can be something as simple as a few minutes of reflection each morning, a mindful walk in nature, or the act of writing your thoughts without filters. These rituals create a sacred space where you can meet yourself again and again, strengthening that inner serenity. Have you ever wondered why some people seem to naturally attract healthy and loving relationships, while others constantly repeat destructive patterns? Jung discovered that the difference isn't in luck or external circumstances, but in the level of consciousness with which we approach our relationships. And that consciousness begins with that serenity that only comes from truly knowing yourself. Many of us have grown up with the idea that love implies a certain degree of suffering. Jung radically challenged this notion, showing that true love expands our consciousness and brings us closer to our essence instead of limiting us or causing us pain. The serenity you experience when true love is near is a sign that you're liberating yourself from those old limiting beliefs about what love should be. It's fascinating to observe how, when you reach that state of inner serenity, you naturally begin to attract people who reflect that same quality. Jung explained it through the concept of morphogenetic fields, that tendency of similar energies to find and resonate with each other. Your serenity becomes a magnet for relationships that vibrate at that same frequency. One of the biggest obstacles to experiencing this serenity is our attachment to past identities. Jung called this the persona, that mask we've created to function in society. Letting go of those identities that no longer serve us can be frightening, but it's precisely in that space of vulnerability where we find our authentic strength, and with it, the ability to attract the love we truly deserve. Perfection is not a requirement to experience this serenity. In fact, Jung insisted that it's precisely when we accept our imperfections, when we integrate our shadows, that we find that inner peace. True love doesn't seek perfection. It seeks authenticity. And authenticity includes embracing all parts of you, even those you've tried to hide or deny. There's a persistent myth that finding true love means never feeling lonely again. Jung debunked this idea, showing that even in the deepest relationships, we remain individuals with our own inner journey. The difference is that when you've cultivated that inner serenity, loneliness transforms from a painful void to a sacred space of connection with yourself. Have you noticed how when you're in that state of serenity, time seems to function differently? Things flow with perfect synchronization. Jung explained it as an alteration in our perception of time when we're aligned with our true self, and it's in this altered state where the deepest and most meaningful connections tend to manifest. If there's one thing I can promise you with absolute certainty, it's this. When you finally choose yourself, when you honor your truth above others' expectations, you'll experience that inexplicable serenity Jung described. And that serenity will be the clearest sign that you're vibrating at the exact frequency to attract the love you've always deserved. The path isn't always easy. There will be moments when you doubt, when you'll be tempted to return to old patterns simply because they're familiar. In those moments, remember Jung's words, "Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes." And it's in that awakening where you'll find not only the love you deserve, but the life you've always been destined to live. If this message has resonated with you, if you felt that spark of recognition while listening, take it as a sign. A sign that you're ready to take the next step on your path to self-knowledge and, by extension, to the true love you deserve. The invitation is clear. Begin choosing yourself today. Not tomorrow, not when circumstances are perfect, but now. Observe your decisions, listen to your intuition, honor your boundaries. And watch how, gradually, that serenity begins to manifest in your life, transforming not only your relationship with yourself, but all your relationships. If this video has touched something within you, share it with those who you feel might benefit from this message. Every time someone chooses themselves, the entire world rises a little higher. And in these times we live in, we need all the elevation we can get. Let me know in the comments if you've experienced that serenity that indicates true love is near. How did it manifest in your life? What changes did you notice in yourself and in your relationships? Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. And if you haven't experienced that serenity yet, remember, the simple fact that you're here, listening to this message, is a sign that you've begun the journey. The path of self-knowledge is the bravest path a human being can undertake. And although it may sometimes feel lonely, you're never truly alone. Jung taught us that we're all connected through the collective unconscious, that vast network of shared wisdom that transcends time and space. When you choose yourself, when you cultivate that inner serenity, you're not only transforming yourself, you're contributing to the transformation of all humanity. So today, right now, take a moment to breathe deeply and connect with that part of you that has always known you deserve a true and deep love. That part that recognizes serenity when it feels it, that trusts in the wisdom of the universe, that knows everything is unfolding exactly as it should. Thank you for sharing this space with me. Remember to hit the notification bell to receive updates about new videos, and if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, this is the perfect moment to do so. Together, we're creating a community of people committed to living from their authenticity, to cultivating that inner serenity, and ultimately, to attracting the love we truly deserve. I'll see you in the next video. And remember, true love isn't something you find. It's something you first cultivate within yourself and then naturally attract into your life. Serenity is just the beginning of an extraordinary journey that awaits you. A journey that, as Jung would say, will lead you not only to find the love you deserve, but to become the love you've always been destined to be.